Then what are you doing here?" "I live here?" He forced a smile and took a swig. "I know you do, but you don't usually live here before dinner time," which, by the way, she'd completely forgotten about. Not to mention drink. "Well, today's a special day." Another forced smile, another swig. Julia swallowed her Cheez-Its, put the remote down, and led him gently by the arm to the kitchen. Then she stared into his face, hoping he wasn't going to announce that he was leaving her for another mother who had a job and didn't wear elasticized pants. "Why is today a special day, Peter?" He finished what was left of his beer, put the bottle down on the counter, and braced himself with both hands on the kitchen island. Then he looked up at her and forced his biggest smile yet. "Because today I got fired." Julia tried to grasp the full meaning of the words, but she couldn't. Peter had never failed at anything since she'd known him. But why? "I don't know. They said something about restructuring my department, but I stopped listening when they started talking about my package. 2 months of pay, a year of medical coverage, plus the use of an executive placement office to help me find another job." She shook her head. "Who else got fired?" "No one. It was just you?" "It was just me." He picked up the empty Heineken bottle and started picking the label off. "I guess that makes me special." "You are special, Peter," she said, hugging him. "You're really, really special." They both laughed a little, but Julia could have kicked herself for pointing out that he was the sole recipient of the company pink slip. He rested his chin on her shoulder, and for a minute they were quiet. When they stopped hugging, they were quiet again. "So how do you feel?" she asked finally. It was a stupid question, she knew, the kind local newscasters ask people when their house is on fire and they've just lost everything. But somehow it was the only thing she could think to say that made sense. He shrugged, then sighed. "Actually, I feel pretty good." "You do?" "I do. I feel—" He looked up at the ceiling as if the perfect word to describe what it felt like to be him at that exact moment in time was hanging from an invisible little string. "Free." She knew that people who experience traumatic loss go through distinct stages. Denial, anger, and grief were 3 she could recall, and now she wondered if delusional positivity was another. Even if it wasn't, she knew whatever phase he was in, she was going to have to support him 100%. "That's great. I mean, maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's for the best, and I'll find a better job." Julia couldn't imagine Peter finding a better job than the one he'd already had. He'd been a management consultant for one of the most prestigious management consulting firms in the world, with great pay and benefits. And though the whole concept of seeing how bad things that happened to good people sometimes ended up being good things that weren't so bad was completely alien to her, she was glad he could see the situation that way. "So how do you feel?" he asked. She was too stunned to know how she felt, but she knew how she didn't feel: free. But before she could come up with something hopeful and optimistic and completely false to say, she saw her parents' faces suddenly materialize at the back door. "Shit," she said. Peter, who just thought she was expressing her feelings about the situation since he'd had his back to the door and didn't see her parents, moved toward Julia and put his arms around her to comfort her. "Don't worry, it'll be okay." "No." She shook her head and extracted herself from his embrace and the misunderstanding and went to the door. Tuesday was Costco Day, and Julia had forgotten that her parents, Len and Phyllis Einstein, who lived one town over in New Rochelle and had an uncannily bad sense of timing, often stopped by her house in Larchmont to share their bounty. Toilet paper, cashews, salmon fillets as big as clown shoes on their way home. Living 10 minutes away from them was a blessing, the free babysitting, the holidays they got to celebrate together, the grandparent-grandchild love affair that blossomed the minute Leo was born, but sometimes she could do without the bulk food drops. Her mother came in first, holding a giant rotisserie chicken showcased in a clear poultry-shaped plastic takeout container. And then her father came in carrying a 4-pound bunch of bananas, which Julia knew her mother would split in 2 to share, since who in the world could eat 4 pounds of bananas before they went bad? They'd obviously seen Peter through the door because now their eyes were as big as saucers and they didn't say anything about the food. "What's wrong?" her mother asked, still clutching the chicken. "Nothing," Julia and Peter said in unison. "Somebody sick?" her father said, looking straight at Peter. "Are your folks okay?" He nodded. "Yes, they're fine." "We should send them an Easter card, by the way," her father said, turning toward her mother. "We did." "I don't remember signing it." "I forged your signature."